Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And hello everybody, and welcome to the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that new intro to the Juice Box. The outro will also have a little bit of a different vibe to it. It'll be the same song, but a little bit of a, subscribe to the show type deal. To end the show, I've been very hard at work as the highest level and lowest level employee of the Juice Box. I have been combing through all 64 episodes of this show to re-edit them and have the new intro and outro, primarily due to legalities, as I look to push this show forward and release it on other platforms. Basically, it needed to be done, and I'm doing it, and it will be done. But the future episodes will have the intro and outro as you hear them today, so hopefully you enjoy them. It's a little bit of a throwback to my fandom in the 90s. I'll leave it at that. But as always, Juicy Steen on Twitter, Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram. You can follow my podcast at juicysteen.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and you can also listen to the show on Spotify. And if you listen to it on Spotify or Apple, if you could give it a 5-star review and or write a review, that would be really, really nice, and I would appreciate it wholeheartedly. Out of the way, though, let's get to the real meat and potatoes of this thing. AEW Revolution this Sunday. Josh Isenberg, former co-host of Chairshot Reality, coming in, throwing a straw in, if you will, to discuss Sting's final match and the entire card from top to bottom. We had Brian Ghoulish this past week as well, here for Sting Week on the Juice Box, where we discussed in depth, over 2 hours, great detail, WCW and Sting's career retrospective. I loved being able to sit down and talk to him for as long as we did. Really, really great memories there. So I really hope you guys go out of your way to, take a couple hours if you have some free time and listen to it, even if it's over the course of a couple days. I really think you would enjoy it, especially if you're a fan of Sting. And more importantly, if you're a fan of WCW. I really don't know that many people in my actual, my real life that watched WCW as it unfolded in real time. So Brian is one of those people, and I was more than thrilled to discuss it with him. As we lead into AEW Revolution this Sunday, Sting's final match happening in the Greensboro Coliseum, same building as Clash of the Champions 1, where Sting and Flair tore the house down in a 45-minute draw, same night as WrestleMania 4. But this pay-per-view Sunday, Young Bucks versus Sting and Darby Allin. Josh Eisenberg and myself run down the entire card. We dive deep into the O'Shea Jackson comments, of course, as well, dealing with hardcore fans, casual fans, what AEW or any company really should do in regards to putting forth promo packages or setting up why a certain guy or girl is in a match and reasonings as to why we should care. We go into that as well. So a very interesting discussion. Really love having Josh on. And without further ado, here are the AEW Revolution predictions from yours truly and Josh Eisenberg right here on the Juice Box. And we are here inside the Juice Box for another episode this week. Another episode featuring a former Chairshot Reality co-host. If you listened and followed along to the pod this past week, we've had the Sting career retrospective featuring Brian Ghoulish, which I felt was one of the better episodes I've recorded. That we recorded, and really went into a deep dive in Sting's career. Because Sting's retirement is this Sunday at the pay-per-view we are about to discuss. We meaning myself and the one, the only, Josh Eisenberg.
Hello. 2 weeks in a row, Juice. And a stacked card. I think we talked, 4 matches last week for Elimination Chamber, more than double that for this week. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to talk and dive in after, AEW Dynamite this past week really ended on a high note, and I'm sure that we're going to talk about that. But good to be back, and I'm ready to get my thirst quenched by your Juice Box.
Absolutely, man. Right before we get into this, I would just like to hear your opinion. Have you seen the recent, uproar about, should AEW present video packages or some sort to promote their matches? And, the main person involved in all this, Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson, Jr. Your thoughts on just should wrestling fans be held to a higher standard of we should know what's going on already? Should we have to Google it? Or should the company kind of tell us? What are your thoughts on that whole thing? I find it fascinating.
Yeah, I find it fascinating too. I think the video packages are a really good idea week to week. I don't necessarily need a video package for every single match at a pay-per-view or at PLE, especially because for AEW, they have 9 matches, so you're going to have almost a 4-hour show guaranteed. You add in 2, 3, 4-minute video packages for each, you're pushing it another half hour. So I think I like the video packages on a week-to-week basis, and I think WWE has done a better job with more video production to make it feel faster. Even when they just introduce somebody or somebody's up next, you get a quick graphic or a very quick 20-second video or 15-second video of who to expect next. I think AEW needs to implement that a little bit more, but it doesn't ultimately affect the product because there's so many storylines I feel that go on in AEW, and they're ever changing too. So you might not get a 6 or 7 month storyline, but you might get a 2 or 3 week storyline. And then you think to yourself, well, how the hell are these two people feuding? Like, what's going on here? That would be a perfect time. If it's a long drawn out story, one that takes the span of 2, 3, 4 months, I don't know if you need a video package to highlight that entire, path, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially like you said, for a pay-per-view like this, for such so many matches, it's probably not necessary. You're going to get promo packages anyway. 2 things. I feel like for a feud, before a match, but in between, for a feud that's happening currently, that match should have a promo package before that match to describe what's happening. Whether that's on a Dynamite, I don't know if that's necessary. Maybe for a pay-per-view, for sure. I think a bigger issue, though, my second point is I kind of agree, though, with AEW and how they do it. AEW's main audience, you and I can agree, is the hardcore fan. WWE has hardcore fans, but they also have the casual wrestling fan who Coke, Pepsi, WWE, UFC is MMA, WWE is wrestling, that WWE stuff, as I heard throughout high school. AEW caters on purpose to the hardcore fan, the fan that's been there forever, who's been online, who's read the dirt sheets. Tony Khan was at Chris Jericho's final match in ECW. He's the mark of all marks in a good way, but sometimes maybe in a bad way. You go online and go crazy sometimes. But I think they cater to that fan and they respect the fan that they cater to, knowing, hey, if we put out a guy from CMLL or New Japan or maybe someone new who has really been on fire on the independent scene like a Nick Wayne or a Brian Keith, what type of thing do we need to really put out there that isn't going to cater to our fans that we already probably know this guy in general? But I think the problem is maybe AEW sees, the hardcore fan will just tell the casual fan about this guy. They'll get the push. We don't really need to do that. Last night in particular on Dynamite or, Wednesday, Jericho faces Atlantis Jr. And before the match, they showed how Atlantis, his father, and Jericho had battles in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking.
That's all I need. Yeah.
That's all we as fans need. I don't need to be a hardcore or a casual to watch that 2-minute video and go, wow, they have history. This is his son. This is a fun dynamic.
Yeah.
But
also that's kind of a throwaway match, though. There's nothing that's going to be built upon that. So I think that's the other part of it. That could be. Yeah.
Yes. The part where, and you made a great point of sure, maybe I don't need to know who this guy is, but can you just tell me why he's here or why he's in this match? Is there any stakes to why he's here? Is he challenging for a title down the line, or is he only here to wrestle one guy this week?
Yeah. And that's what
stuff like
seems to be the thing a lot of the times for Tony Khan, though, is you'll see individuals from CMLL or you'll see individuals from other, organizations or companies that come in and they're there for 1 or 2 matches and that's it. So I think that's a bigger problem for AEW is they want to just have all of these people come in and do one-offs. I mean, there's a litany of people, and that takes away from valuable time. I mean, I'm fine with them having the matches on Rampage. I don't want to see 1 or 2 offs go against one of your top guys just because he fought his dad in the 90s, but nobody really remembers that, even though you can get a video package too. So that's a whole different story. That'll take up the entire program. So.
That's right. So, but yeah, I just, I wanted to touch on that. I just, I'm a WWE fan. I'm an AEW fan. I'm a pro wrestling fan. I just like to see how AEW clearly approaches it from that hardcore fan side. And when it's challenged of, hey, maybe some other people aren't ever going to watch your show if they don't know who these people are. The regular fan's going to know a Christian or a Chris Jericho, Sting, certain guys. But other than that, if you're just throwing new guys in every week, it's very tough for the casual fan to walk in and get acclimated with the program. So I think it's a fine balance, and we'll see how they go going forward. But as you said, this card is stacked. 9 matches. Crazy how we had 4 matches last week, and in a segment, and that show was what it was. It was very predictable. May I say, you and I 4 for 4 in our predictions last week. Shout out to us. But don't know if we'll go 9 for 9. We'll see. Let's crack into it. First of all, we were gonna have meet madness or meet something, and it was gonna be Brian Cage, Powerhouse, or no, it was gonna be Wardlow, Hobbs, and Lance Archer. I'm not sure if anybody else is gonna be added to that match, but Tony Khan said due to some people being injured in scheduling or what have you, that match is on ice, which is fine. So they'll have that match in the future sometime. But now we're going to get, all-star scramble, and now I'm seeing the winner gets a future AEW World Championship match. All of a sudden, this match was a triple threat meme for Big E Langston's match. And now, look at me calling him Langston. What was it, 2012? And now we get, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, an 8-person match in a scramble. Is this going to be like the championship scramble? Is it going to be like a gauntlet? Or is it just like a eight-way first pin?
I don't know. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how they do this. I'm not sure of the rules. I don't think they even know really what's going to happen yet. But I look at the roster here, and this is a really, really good opportunity for somebody like a Wardlow to get a future world championship match. And I look at the guys on the list. Magnus, no. Dante, no. Cage, no. Hook, maybe, but no. Archer, no. Jericho, no. So I think when you look at that, Wardlow and Hobbs are the 2 guys that I immediately stick out, right? But Wardlow is at a point right now where he cut that promo a few weeks ago, and it was great. I think as we go dig deeper into this card, I think if they're really wanting the Undisputed Kingdom to kind of begin to take over AEW, this is the first chip, with other chips falling later in the night. But I look at this and I'm not sure what the outcome is. I don't know who got hurt, because from what I remember, Wardlow, Hobbs, and Archer were the 3 men in Meat Madness, and they're both, all 3 of them are on the card. So it's like, wait a second here. But if I had to think about it, I mean, I look at these guys, I think it's, a random match to put on the card, but you're putting a championship opportunity there, which I like. I always think that that's good for multiple individual matches. Give me Wardlow for this match. Who you got?
Yeah, so without me stating it, Jericho, Wardlow, Hobbs, Archer, Hook, Brian Cage, Magnus. Is he a CMLL guy?
Yeah. What did I just say? I just listed all the people.
What did I just say? And Dante Martin. So outside of just like what this match is if it's all 8 guys at once, it might not look great, but it'll be insane. So I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Wardlow and Hobbs are definitely the guys that have something going forward. Hook already has like a title and can kind of do his own thing. I got to think Wardlow, and we'll talk about it later. I got to think Roderick Strong might be in a way going to take this title from OC as well. So give me Wardlow in this scramble match. However, Didn't Wardlow already get a huge opportunity and then they failed with it? Is this going to work out for Wardlow?
Has to.
It has to.
I think it has to, because if it doesn't, and I don't know the length of his contract, but I have to imagine it's closer to expiration than renewing, or the end of a new contract. And he is a guy that could be very, very well off with a change of scenery, just because it's not like they booked him so poorly, but he was so hot and they just didn't strike.
Like and a bunch of like factors out of his control, the MJF thing, and then like the Adam Cole getting hurt. This whole storyline could be different, and Wardlow could have a different position if Adam Cole was ready to roll, and like the whole thing fell how they wanted it. And I agree, a change of scenery would be interesting. But I think he would. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I do think he would jump ship, but what I was going to say is I think this is an opportunity for Tony to kind of right the ship of Wardlow. Because when I look at the World Championship card right now, you have a lot of really good talent. You have a guy that everybody's high on in Swerve. You have the established Joe. You have the former champ in Hangman. It's an interesting main event level card, main event scene. Then let's just say, if you look at last year for AEW Revolution, they had a lot of guys that had the name that were already, hey, we're already the main event guys. We're already established. You had MJF and Danielson in that Iron Man match. Wow. And you think about it, I mean, you had Moxley and Page. So you had, in my opinion, Danielson and Moxley as the established main event guys this time last year in pretty high profile matches. But now it's a Swerve's opportunity. Now this is Hangman to an extent, but this is a different Hangman than last year.
Right.
And then you have, Wardlow, who is a guy that should be at that level right now. I mean, he beat Joe this time last year at Revolution in about 10 minutes. And now he's kind of in a scramble because they didn't know what to do with him. So, give me Wardlow. I think the sky is the limit for him, but Tony could limit what his sky is.
Wow, look at you. Quickly, though, you said you could see Wardlow jumping ship. I think he would suit well in NXT and then eventually go to the main roster. Yeah. Do you think he would be better off going straight to the main roster, or would you think he would be more suited for NXT, like a Braun Breaker, where they really polished him and now he'll be on SmackDown every week?
I think he could be on the main roster, but I think he would start in NXT. There's not a ton of people that go back to the main roster from AEW or somebody from the independents. I mean, or New Japan, guys like AJ Styles are the established guy who did not have to go to NXT, or the Good Brothers and things like that who are now in NXT. But I would say NXT for him.
Hey, Sean Spears, he just showed up in NXT, so anything's possible.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking forward to this contract situation with Wardlow, even though MJF had the true contract situation. Mm-hmm. Wardlow is kind of more interesting. All right, so we both got Wardlow there. Let's go to the next match, a tag match, FTR versus the BCC, Mox and Claudio. I just can't think of anything other than this is going to be a great, hard-hitting match.
Yep.
I believe we just saw kind of the same thing in a trios format. Mm-hmm. I foresee nothing but a great contest here. I think the Blackpool Combat Club need a win. I don't know what they're doing. Like, Jon Moxley, I've stated for a very long time, he is honestly the backbone of AEW. He was the first huge move to AEW from WWE, and anytime anything has gone wrong, Jon Moxley has been there. Like the Punk thing, any injury, Jon Moxley has been there. So I think at this point, he's having a good time. He's kind of not middling in the mid card, but he's a part of a tag team here. He's part of a bigger group. Other guys got other things going on. Yeah. But I think a good match will be had here, and I'm going to take the Blackpool Combat Club to win. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to take FTR. I think whenever you look at the tag team division within AEW, obviously we'll talk about the main event, which will be Sting and Darby, and if they retain, but you just eliminate that tag team, in the future because Sting's done. So in my mind, they need a more face tag team, and FTR is probably the most beloved tag team in AEW, and they are a true tag team. I mean,
yes,
I remember when AEW, during the pandemic and shortly out of the pandemic, had so many tag teams. I mean, they had the Young Bucks, they had FTR, they had the Lucha Brothers, they had Private Party. They had all these young teams mixed with established teams, and really had a bench full of what those tag teams looked like. As again, the established versus the younger guys. I think FTR need to win this because I do see another FTR Young Bucks match in the near future if we think, and stay tuned, if the Young Bucks become AEW World Tag Team Champions. But I can make a case for BCC, but I don't think anything that happens to Moxley affects how he's viewed. But if FTR continues to take losses and take losses and take losses, I mean, that I think hurts your true traditional tag teams in AEW. And I think you need to polish them more than, let them suffer losses, make them look better.
Yeah. Like you said, we'll get to the main event. And as you're discussing, it could be the Young Bucks. I really, honestly, it'll probably take us discussing the main event for me to actually pick a winner, because I'm so half and half on that thing, which is great. Yep. But you make a good point with FTR there, and they easily could take this thing. I'm glad that at this point, look at this maybe 10 years or maybe 6-7 years ago. Would you ever thought you'd get Cesaro, Dean Ambrose versus the Revival on a pay-per-view?
Not at all.
Nuts to think.
Yeah, and that's a great thing that Tony Khan does. I know we talk about his questionable decisions or whatever it is, but he does such a great job at giving us what we should have gotten in WWE and really highlighting a lot of the talent that were not highlighted as much in WWE. So kudos to him on that. And I mean, either way, whoever wins this, I think they're next in line for a tag team championship opportunity. So you can go either way with this one.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from what you just said, is that Tony Khan really brings forth the best that maybe wasn't tapped into before from other talent. So let's get into another match here. This is for a championship. Christian Cage, TNT champion, with Killswitch, Mother Wayne, and the prodigy Nick Wayne versus Daniel Garcia. I think Christian Cage is going to retain here. I don't know what the future holds with him in the title. I thought we were going to get a ladder match with Christian and Adam Copeland. Copeland's not even on this show, but maybe he interferes here. And also, Mother Wayne is giving me Mrs. Robinson from The Graduate vibes, so I cannot wait for this contest. I'm taking Christian. Who you got?
I'm taking Christian too. And, nothing against Daniel Garcia. They did a really great job at trying to heat this up really quick, 2 weeks ago on Dynamite. I think ultimately the Christian Edge story has to end with a ladder match between the two, and I think this is just a stopgap. I don't know if Edge is actually hurt. Adam Copeland's hurt. I'm not sure if they just wanted to prolong it, so they said, you know what? Let's give him a few weeks. Let's give Christian a viable opponent. Garcia, one of my favorite guys on AEW. I just don't see him being the one that dethrones Christian Cage for the championship.
Right, and if you look at whether Copeland's injured or not, what's the next pay-per-view? It's Double or Nothing. It's arguably their biggest show. It was their first show back in May of 2019. Mm-hmm. So I don't see why not. They said they have All In Wembley. They have All Out every year as well. But to me, Double or Nothing is the AEW pay-per-view that kind of, because it was the first one, it was like, this is how they're portraying their pay-per-views, the poker chips. It's Vegas. I think that's great for a potential ladder match. So I'm taking Christian in this match as well. Let's go forth with arguably could be the best overall wrestling match of the show. And I'm just excited that, we talked earlier about hardcore fans and casual fans, and for such a long time, and it kind of continues to this day, although the New Japan roster from, the days of Shinsuke and AJ Styles, Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, some of those guys are now all in other companies now, where now we can really appreciate a guy like Will Ospreay on a North American pay-per-view see him against a guy who has beaten Kenny Omega a few times, Takeshita. Takeshita Ospreay. This is going to be a crazy, crazy match. I see no other way but to put Will Ospreay over here. His first true pay-per-view match as an AEW talent. I'm very excited for this. I like his promo the other night on Dynamite, where he's kind of, he's a part of the quote unquote Don Callis family, but he's a baby face. Yeah. Everybody kind of loves him, and I'm looking forward to seeing growth of a character for Will Ospreay week to week on TV, because before it was just look at this great, amazing talent having 7-star matches on New Japan, and that's great. But I love to see a little bit more. This is like the WWE part of it. Let me see a storyline. Let me see some personality and charisma. And this is the start of it. So give me Will Ospreay. Match is going to be nuts. What do you think?
Could not agree more with you, Bob. It's going to be nuts. Ospreay, in my mind, bruv, is just a hell of an opponent. A hell of an opponent for Takeshita. Like, I think those two guys are going to tear the house down here, and I do think that there's going to be some shenanigans where Don Callis tries to interfere with Ospreay, and then that's the story as he splits up from the Don Callis family, whether that happens, at this event or, weeks down the road or whatever. But the Ospreay aura around him, I think, provides two things for AEW. One, it provides absolute main event 5-star matches that obviously Tony Khan likes. But what it also does is it brings to an American audience a guy that we're familiar with. But as you said, we're not familiar with like all the growth and character development that he could be. We've seen the matches, but it wasn't really a week to week to week. Like, okay, this is where he was 6 months ago. Here's where he's at now. Because with the American audience, you didn't really see him unless it was on pay-per-view or his, 1 or 2 matches a month. So giving him more TV time is going to be so critical in his development. And I think, aside from one other person that I'll talk about later, this is Tony Khan's golden goose. And I think for every reason that's justifiably so, he is going to put on a show. And I think I'm more excited about this match than probably 7 or 8 of the other matches on the card.
Wow, that's high praise. And again, it's such an interesting dynamic when we talked about earlier with the casual and hardcore fans, where, let's be real, Josh, if you, myself, Labar, Ghoulish, if we had chair shot back in the day, maybe 5 or after the show concluded, but before AEW, that little window there, and we talked about a guy like a Will Ospreay, it would be more of a, well, Juice, you know him from New Japan, talk about him, whatever. We don't know him. And now we are getting to discuss him, like you said, week to week. Let's see what he's got. And I think you're right. I think it's spot on that. And it's almost a by default. He's already a face to me, but him turning on Don Callis will be great fodder. And then it'll lead to, let's see what he's got going forth. Do you think Will Ospreay, if he wins this match, assuming he does, and maybe not number one contender, but he'll got to be going up there, right?
I think Ospreay gets his world championship match at All In.
And at Wembley that they've been promoting for since the last one.
Year. Yeah, I think that's the plan. But so he'll be, double or nothing. I think he gets a pretty big match. I could see him going against like a Danielson or a Mox, those guys. So but I think his ultimate time will be at All In for a world championship match. And I'll be honest with you, we'll talk about it. Will it be Samoa Joe? Will it be Swerve? Will it be Hangman? Time will tell. But he's definitely a shoo-in for that championship match, I think, in Wembley.
You mentioned him. I can't wait for a potential Will Ospreay Bryan Danielson match, but Bryan Danielson has his own thing to worry about here with Eddie Kingston for the AEW Continental Championship, ROH World Championship, and New Japan Strong Openweight Championship, which is the Continental Crown Championship. And if Danielson loses, he has to shake Kingston's hand. Did you get all that? Did you get all that? There's a lot here. I don't know. We can praise AEW during this show, but if there's one thing I can complain about, it's the convoluted nature of the championship title belt situation in AEW, where why are there 3 company belts involved in an overall championship? Like it's convoluted. I don't know what else to say. Like, if one guy loses, does he lose all three? Do the three dissipate to the companies that are involved, even though AEW owns Ring of Honor, but they have a relationship with New Japan? It's insane. But Eddie Kingston, Bryan Danielson, outside of the title business, I think the stipulation of if Danielson loses, he has to shake Kingston's hand plays into this. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I have a hunch that Eddie Kingston will win this match by hook or by crook and not with hook interference. What say you?
I mean, I think he could. I don't know. I think the better situation is Danielson wins and still shakes his hand. Or at least extends the hand and then Kingston walks out not shaking his hand.
There are reasons why I call upon certain people for certain episodes of this show, and you just made it very apparent. That's genius, Josh. That's genius. Yeah. He can still win the title and put forth that stipulation. That's it. That's what's going to happen. It's exactly. We could mess up on Damian Priest cashing in 12 months in
over and over and over again. Never ended.
This is going to happen. It's a lock, Jerry.
Lock, Jerry.
So I mean, I think it'll be a great match. But you know what? You've turned me around. I'm going to choose Bryan Danielson winning and still shaking Eddie Kingston's hand, which would be nice. It's like it's character development for Danielson as well, because he's very harsh. I'm going to kick this mother effer's head in. It's BCC. It's no nonsense, but I think at a point he can respect Eddie Kingston, especially if he takes this from him. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Definitely.
Another title on the line here, the only women's match on the card. That's a whole nother episode we could be discussing, considering the depth of this roster. But I'm still looking forward to this match. Nevertheless, Timeless Toni Storm defending against Deonna Purrazzo. This match is basically over the title and a tattoo that they, share. I'm looking forward to Deonna Purrazzo getting an AEW pay-per-view match here. This is a huge, bigger audience than she's really ever had in a match like this. The Virtuosa being a part of TNA and Impact for a few years now, and just being very relevant in the women's wrestling scene for a better part of the last 5 years or so. This match should be really strong. Toni Storm should retain. I don't know. Her gimmick is the best gimmick that they honestly have ever cultivated. Like, I never would have thought that, let's make her a movie star, but let's do black and white and let's do these insane silent movies.
It's must-see television. It's must-see television for me every week whenever she comes out.
Right. And the production is insane. The half black and white and the half color shots, like the effort, it's Timeless Toni Storm, but the amount of time that is put into her character really shows you the confidence that they have in her. And I don't think that she's going to lose at this particular show. I'm going to have Timeless Toni Storm winning. What are your thoughts?
Definitely agree with all of that. I think Toni Storm wins. I think this is the best Toni Storm we've seen. I've been a huge Toni Storm fan even when she was in NXT, the WWE main roster, which was not long, but and also not fruitful, hence why she left. Yeah, but I think this match is going to be exactly what you think it is, a physical, technical match that's, it doesn't need to be 20, 25 minutes. You can put this at 12 to 15 minutes of some good technicality inside of the ring, because that's really what Deonna Purrazzo does. And I think Toni Storm's character is a character that you ride that character until the wheels fall off. And I don't see the wheels falling off anytime soon. And she's done a great job at being this character, and just AEW always has great wrestlers. They have great wrestling matches. They have great, 20-minute matches on TV almost every week. Toni Storm can do that, but she shouldn't do that as this character. She doesn't need to do that as this character. Once your character gets to a certain point, you don't need to rely on 20, 25-minute 5-star matches. So I think that's why I like Toni Storm right now, because she can do 10 to 15 minutes, great matches, but really just hit kind of all the spots. But really what drives her and what drives the storylines in the matches is her character. So, I mean, I think she puts on better lipstick than everybody except for Elaine, but I think that she is really just getting she's really getting into a groove now, and there's no way you take the title off of her.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, the Elaine comparison just, has me. I am at a loss.
A loss.
All right, we got 3 more matches. I'm going to start with the AEW International Championship. A normal match, I would have assumed any other time. But as you mentioned earlier with the Wardlow of it all, the fact that Roderick Strong, along with Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, and I don't know if OC is going to have, best friends with him at all, involved in this whole thing. Roderick Strong being a part of the Undisputed Kingdom as well with Wardlow. I have a feeling that this match is going to turn the Undisputed Kingdom's way. Give me Roderick Strong winning the AEW International title from Orange Cassidy. Maybe by some shenanigans, because, can't just be clean with the Undisputed Kingdom. But I think Roddy's going to take this thing. What do you think?
Yeah, Roddy for sure. The Undisputed Kingdom need, a lot behind them, and just having those guys, run around and pick up regular wins. And kudos to Orange Cassidy. He has, in my mind, has been the international champion or the face of that, championship for a very long time, even whenever he lost it for a brief period. But it's time for them to, if they want to put their chips all in one group, it has to be the Undisputed Kingdom. I think that Tony knows that. I think that Tony agrees that that's what's going to happen. And there's nobody better than Roderick Strong right now that could dethrone them. And it's funny because Roddy was so good with the Adam Cole and MJF stuff, and he's kind of taken more of a serious character, which I'm fine with, because at some point that has to stop. He sprinkles in the humor every once in a while. But this match is the beginning, or depending on where it's at on the card, is the continuation of the Undisputed Kingdom becoming the kingdom that reigns over AEW.
Yeah, and what you alluded to with the Wardlow of it all, and like the fact that the Undisputed Kingdom is just, they get wins, they're quote unquote running amok. Let's use all the cliches from week to week TV for pro wrestling, the numbers game, if you will. But at some point, if you really want to push this group, to a higher level, and damn it, can we hopefully get Adam Cole? Like, how long is he out?
Yeah.
Until he comes back, you need something to maintain their, presence on Dynamite week to week. And having Roddy with a title, having Wardlow have a potential world title opportunity, all matters to where, look, these guys matter. They have opportunities. They have some gold. And that will kind of push forth the Adam Cole. Like, Adam Cole can have more time to heal and get better. And in the meantime, Roddy can defend the title, and Wardlow can have this opportunity in the balance, and whenever he wants to have it. And, I just think it's a smart move week to week. Like we said with seeing Will Ospreay week to week, we got to have this group do something week to week instead of just beating people up or whatever. And that seems to be the only way to do it. Because if Roddy loses this, what are we doing?
There's no legs to stand on for them. Yeah, they don't really have any, braggadocious things to say. So, yeah. I mean, I agree with everything. I think when you look at that entire Undisputed Kingdom, you gotta make sure that you're putting all the pieces together. So whenever Adam Cole does return, he's returning with purpose, with reason, and also with maybe an underlying reason of trying to become AEW World Champion, as he said before, with Wardlow winning it and giving it to him, which is never going to happen. But I agree with everything you're saying on that one.
I don't know. I think Wardlow might just hand the title over like Andre did to Ted DiBiase. It seems legitimate to me. Exactly. 2 more matches to go. I did the Sting episode with Brian Ghoulish this past week, and we kind of pondered during that, what closes this show? Does the result?
Does the
well,
of course.
We're not. You don't know what I'm going to bring up because I'm not bringing up the Sting match.
All right.
I'm saying that the result of the following match we're going to discuss may influence whether Sting and Darby are going on last. Because to me, I think Sting and Darby should go on last regardless. To me, if that happens, And it's a two-pronged thing. If Swerve is going to win this championship, which a lot of people think is going to happen, whether it's now or in the future, but let's say if it happens now, do you want that overshadowed by something like Sting? Or do you think it's overshadowed if Swerve if Swerve wins this title, maybe middle of the show? It's not going to be the match before Sting and Darby. That'll probably be the women's title match. Where do you place it? Could you have a world title change and Sting's final match all happen? Like, is anything going to be overshadowed? What are your takes on where either of these matches are placed? Do you think the results factor into that, or can it just be the title match, the world title match happens whenever Sting has to go last?
I don't think the results matter. I think Sting's going to go last no matter what the results are. But since we're talking about results, when I look at this triple threat match, I understand that people want Swerve to win. I'm not in that same wagon. And when I mentioned about 15 minutes ago in this podcast about the Golden Goose, we know that Swerve is Tony's guy. I 2 years ago, I had people say, watch out for Swerve. Tony loves him and is going to make him a star. And I understand it. I still don't typically love Swerve. I think he's fine, but I'm not, can't say some things that I want to say, but I'm not, excited.
You hate the dancing. We get it.
It's not even the dancing. It's really not that's a part of it, but it's not the dancing. But okay. I'm not like jonesing over every time Swerve comes on my TV. And there's just something, and again, I'm definitely in the minority here. There's something that just is not connecting fully for me.
And that's fair. I don't think you necessarily have to feel like you're on an island with that. That's not necessarily a hot take to me. I think that you are, because I think Adam Page is just as on fire and has been the same. Adam Page has been on this as the Swerve Strickland level for like 4 years now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, so whenever going back to does the outcome of the matches dictate how the card is structured? Not for this one, because, I think Joe wins. I do think Swerve becomes a world champion because I think Tony, for whatever reason, thinks he is like the absolute best. And look, I'm not saying that he's not great. I think he is excellent. But I'm just not ready to say this guy should be the face of your company, because I don't know how much appeal he has outside of the outside of the AEW hardcore fans that might not really know who he is. And I think that's the problem that I have is he hasn't done enough for me to he doesn't pass the airport test. And I know that's a thing that everybody talks about. I don't look at him and say that's a superstar. That's a world champion. That's the guy. I see that in guys like Samoa Joe. I see that in guys, even guys like Wardlow or Powerhouse Hobbs, or heck, even Hangman Page, Jericho. It's not always about size because Swerve's not the biggest, but there's something missing. So at the end of the day, I think Joe wins this match. I think this match goes on right before Sting, Darby, and the Young Bucks.
And I would wager if that's the case, because I really think they need a buffer between them.
They could, yeah.
Of course they could. The more I look at this, and I tend to agree with you to an extent, but it's only to further my actual opinion on it, is that Swerve may not, the airport test, as you said, I think he's on the cusp of being the guy. I just still don't think he's there yet. I think him and Adam Page, and this is a crazy comparison. I'm not saying I believe it, but this is what people look at and say is that Hangman and Swerve are the Rock Austin of AEW. And I get,
yeah.
Well, here's the thing. To compare them to the other two is dumb, is insane. I would never do it in good conscience. But how they are portrayed in their rivalry, I think, is comparable to a Rock and Austin, where no matter how far off these guys are with other things going on, whenever they connect or have a problem that may intersect with each other, somehow they cannot move past, I have to beat you, you have to beat me. We are the turning point of whatever we are both going through. One of us has to beat the other to go to where we need to be. And I'm going to say, I don't think Joe's walking out of this with the championship. I don't think Swerve's walking out of this with the championship. I am going to take porn star mustache Hangman Adam Page.
Porn star Page.
to win his second AEW championship, because to me, I think, some are going to say, oh, triple threat, that's an easy way for Joe to lose, not get pinned, Swerve gets the title, whatever. If you want Swerve to be the guy, I think you have to have Swerve beat the guy who he's beaten before but couldn't beat in this match. He couldn't overcome Page in this match. If my booking is correct, Hangman is champion. He can throw it in Swerve's face, and Swerve has to climb back and eventually get that match. And maybe it's a double or nothing. I don't know. Because then if Swerve wins there, then you get Swerve Ospreay, and that's where we really start getting into chaos territory of insane matches for the world title. But I'm going to take Hangman Adam Page to win this title. I don't know if Swerve takes the loss here. Maybe Joe takes the pin, but I'm looking forward to it, to be honest. Do you think that's totally out of the realm to see Adam Page win this thing?
No, I think that all three of them have a chance to walk out. And that's a really good thing about this triple threat match, just because you can make a case for all three, right? Like,
true.
You don't think that Joe's going to lose the championship after beating MJF, but you can see it happening because of what they've done with Swerve and Hangman. It's funny because a lot of world championship matches, it's typically the champion and one other person feuding, and then a random comes in, right? But this one, the main feud is actually the two guys that are competing. So that doesn't make Joe feel less, because Joe never feels less about anything because of the presence he has on your television screen. But it is a unique dynamic. But I can honestly say I wouldn't be surprised if any of these three walked out.
Yeah, you make a good point there. And just in general with, how we were discussing the fact that Joe maybe is not less than, but, he's involved in this because he's the champion. That's the best part, is that he doesn't need to be involved with what Swerve's doing or what Hangman's doing. He's the champion. They want what he has. And if they have to beat the hell out of each other just to maybe get the title here, then that's in Joe's advantage. Mm-hmm. Like you said, I think any of those three could walk out as champion. We have one more match. Brian Goulash and I went over 2 hours discussing this man's career, and I cannot believe that it's actually ending this Sunday. I've been a fan of his ever since I was a little kid. I can't believe
5 years ago, though, right? So
that's true. But this guy has been wrestling for so long. And the fact that something we alluded to during that special episode is that, we talked about Vader, Flair, Luger, Rick Rude, Foley. How many of his opponents or just guys, in the same business have fallen away, passed away, not been in the business, can't even walk anymore? Like terrible things, or just time has passed by as Sting somehow, some way has been able to continue his career, even though he did retire briefly from in 2016 after the match he had with Rollins at Night of Champions in 2015. But luckily he's been able to come back, have this amazing little run here. It started, his first match back was AEW Revolution 2021, and how fitting. The same building that he and Ric Flair tore down, Clash of the Champions won in 1988, that went head-to-head with Mania 4, Greensboro Coliseum. The same pay-per-view he debuted here at AEW 3 years later. Sting teams with Darby Allin as the tag team champions, defending against Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, the Young Bucks. As a guy who loved Sting growing up, throughout all his WCW career, never thought he'd go to WWE, loved his TNA run for a bit, came to WWE, and then it was all taken away. I'm so thrilled that he has this spot now to close out on his terms. And on the opposite side, as a guy who loved the Young Bucks and loved the aura that they had on the indie scene for all those years, and the fact that they were a part of why AEW was created, I'm so torn as a fan seeing that the Young Bucks potentially are going to be the ones to rip it all away from Sting. I love how it actually turned out, because I think Sting ultimately wanted all this to pan out how it has happened, whether we wanted it to be or not. I like that Sting has had this choice. It could go one or two ways.
Man. Take a breath. Holy
I
hell.
can't, man. I love this thing, man. I can't.
5-minute rant. I'm not sure where the hell you're going with this.
I know. I'm just gonna ask my girlfriend about how I just rattle on and on and on. I'm gonna pick
the juice box.
That's right, baby. That's why I have great guests like you, so we can cut me off it a bit. I'm gonna ultimately go. I'm going to go with the Young Bucks to win this match. I know that Sting and Darby Allin, they could easily have Darby pick a new partner and them go off and do whatever you need. But I think Sting ultimately, if he wanted this match to be what it was, he could go out on his own terms. I think he knows and he would want, look, you can give me the Greensboro, you can give me all this stuff. I want the future to be preserved because of me. So he can have his moment, right? But let the Young Bucks do it. And I think even if the Young Bucks win, it's not like they're not going to celebrate Sting afterwards. So
exactly, yeah. And I think the biggest thing for me is because I thought about thinking, maybe Darby and Sting win and they just relinquish the championships on Dynamite, but then you have Sting's last Dynamite on Wednesday, and that was a huge marketing chip for Tony to do, which I thought came off great. But then I think, you can't have them win and then Darby just come out by himself with the titles or appoint a new tag team partner because nobody can replace Sting for Darby. So then I think about it. I'm like, you know what? Sting is an old-fashioned guy. He's old school. He's going to want to put over the younger generation. And I think this match will be great. I think the Young Bucks might Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan oversell Sting sometimes, which I'm excited to see and laugh at.
Yes.
Which I'm fine with. But I do think Sting, these last few years in AEW reminds you that, if you have the passion for something and no matter how old you are, you can get yourself ready to go in shape. And it's a kudos to him, man, because I did not have any interest in him after his WrestleMania 31 match, and he just completely did a 180, in my mind when he came to AEW and has put on just moment after moment. And man, it's been great. The promo was great last week. I think this is the ultimate send-off, and I'm happy that it's the Young Bucks because if anybody in AEW needs a W, it's the Young Bucks, not wins or losses, but needs hey, we're still doing this. It's them. Because they get a lot of crap for a lot of things that happen backstage, or they're still the EVPs, but I love how they're leaning into it.
Yes.
Young Bucks win the titles. I love the Young Bucks with their character, and good things are going to happen for them after this pay-per-view.
Yeah, man. And I'm so glad you said that they're leaning into it. At some point, their whole career, even not in AEW, and which is what endeared me to in the first place, was their tongue-in-cheek stuff. Yeah. They would do, I know, and people are going to complain, but I don't care. The Meltzer driver, doing things like very obviously panning to a certain part of the audience, or just literally pandering to their fans only. And that's what drew them away from other fans or made them heels. And now that they're on this national, program every week, and, it's partially their company, they can lean into that and make it a part of the show. And I think they respect Sting. I mean, it's obvious. None of this would be happening without that respect. And I think I agree there. They need the win, and they'll get the titles. They'll have that heat of course, Sting was going to retire anyway. But it's damn, you couldn't even take a pin for Sting. You had to beat him. You had to do that. And then whoever, maybe, we talked about that tag match earlier. Maybe the Young Buck, FTR Young Bucks at Double or Nothing. No, possibly. Come on. So something like that. It seems to be something that would work. Lastly, before we head out of here, so Ric Flair's going to be a part of it. Do you see anybody, additionally? I'm sure we'll see his sons there. I'm really hoping for Lex Luger, although I think that would cancel out his chances of being in the Hall of Fame this year. So maybe he won't do that. But do you see any other legends, maybe accompanying Sting, or maybe after the fact, just celebrating with him in the ring?
Probably after the fact. I mean, you get Flair. Lex would have been my next initial thought. It's funny that you said, a few minutes ago about the people that have come and gone in the wrestling business. Guys like a Vader would have been great, had he be here. And
yeah, that'd have been amazing.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that you keep it to 3 or 4 people. I think Flair and Luger are the top 2 that come to my mind. I mean, his sons obviously, but when you think about it, you don't want all these you don't want like 10 legends to come out and celebrate with him on TV. You got something off the air, but you got to give him his spotlight. And it's funny, man. Like, Rick, came to AEW, didn't do much, but he's there at the very end just to pick up a little bit of scraps and, call it what you will. But he is the guy that needs to be there for Sting's final match. And I'm happy that he will be there for both of them.
Absolutely, and I love that they kind of already did the swerve of Flair turning on the Bucks, because I was not thinking that if they do this at the pay-per-view, it was going to go over very well.
No, not at all, yeah.
So now it's almost like, look, that happened. We know that Flair's on their side, and if anything, I don't know if this is feasible, but give me the Young Bucks' dad out there, and then Flair's out there. Flair could beat up on the Young Bucks dad. I think that would be something interesting, as a little dynamic. But outside of that, I'm just so happy that Sting gets to do this on his own terms. Mm-hmm. It's crazy that Darby Allin, I always say that the obvious choice sometimes is the best choice, and AEW has been incredible at doing the obvious choice. And when Darby was coming along, being this great, up and coming babyface who's, half his face is painted and he kind of has this weird vibe around him, but he kind of reminds you of Sting just in general. And then Sting comes in, who better to pair? And then they do it, and they've been doing it for 3 years now, and it's just perfect. And I just can't see this ending any better for Sting. So I'm thrilled that the match is happening. I think the Young Bucks are going to take it. But any final words, Josh, on this whole pay-per-view card? I mean, I think we both can agree it's a stacked card. And whether you like week to week of Dynamite or not, and I know people are very critical of that, damn, do they not deliver on almost every single pay-per-view?
They always do, and I'm going to have about 5 cups of coffee, I think, because we are in for a 5-hour show, the 9 matches here, so.
Absolutely, man. And it's nice to have 5 coffees and you're up at night on a Sunday night instead of waking up at 4 a.m. trying to watch 4 matches on Elimination Chamber. Well, I'm talking a little fast, but it's kind of hard to tell. Awesome. But yeah, man, appreciate you as always, Josh, coming into the Juice Box. Looking forward to discussing what happens next week, of course. And we're on the road to WrestleMania as it pertains to the Juice Box in general. AEW won't have another pay-per-view, I believe, until Double or Nothing, unless they slip something into April. But until then, appreciate you guys listening. You can follow Josh Isenberg on Twitter at Josh Isenberg4, as well as myself at Juicy Steen. It's always great doing these predictions with you, Josh. Looking forward to the show this weekend, and hopefully you want to throw your straw in maybe for WrestleMania next month?
Oh, it's already halfway in.
I love to hear that. Just the bendy part of the straw is left. That's all I want to slurp on at the end. So hopefully you guys listen to this show. Have a great time watching AEW Revolution this coming weekend, and enjoy Sting's final match. I cannot believe it's actually happening, but it is. And for Josh Eisenberg, I'm Juice Springsteen. Hopefully you guys enjoy this special Revolution episode of The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.